Hey guys, Danny here, and now we're going to be diagnosing what's wrong with the X5. Before I start jacking it up and, taking things apart, I'm going to do the smart thing and see if I can diagnose what's wrong with it via software. Now what I have right here is a very advanced laptop from 2010 or whenever. It's running Windows 7, I think. This is the only Windows computer I have. It's actually my girlfriend's old computer, and I just have a bunch of the diagnostic software installed. So we're going to start with INPA. INPA is a pretty basic but common BMW diagnostic software. It uses what's called the K-CAN cable into the ODB2 port. This is something that pretty much every car after 1996 has. Now, INPA is BMW specific, but almost every car brand has some version of diagnostic software. There we go. Cable's already connected. Alright, now we're pressing INPA. Alright, sweet. So this is INPA. It's pretty basic. Let's see where the X5 is. There we go, F9. So that's, or I could press it down there, E53, that's the chassis code of this. Let's do the transmission and gearbox control module. Let's see if we can do anything with that. Now that we're here, let's do error memory. Let's read the error memory. Output rev sensor. Something related to a sensor. This doesn't look like it's causing the troubles here, so let's go back. Let's do engine and see if the DME has any details on what's going on with this. Let's read the error memory. Okay, here we go. Secondary air system. That's typical. That's not related to what we're dealing with right now. Yeah, that's fine. Tank ventilation, that's the evap system, that's nothing. Okay, so INPA's not showing anything specific. So let's quit INPA. And now we're going to switch to PASoft, also known as BMW Scanner, version 1.4.0. That's the version you need for these older cars, because the newer versions are only for the newer BMWs. Okay, there we go. Ignition is on, so now we can press continue. Okay, it's scanning the car right now. It's showing this E53, and it's funny because it shows this as an X5 Alpina, because BMW developed this engine with Alpina, and I guess Alpina developed the tune. So now we're going to scan. So this is where it gets a little fun. Now we don't really need to scan it fully because we're mostly looking for what's up with the DME and the gearbox modules. We don't really need anything else, so we're just going to stop it right here. Yeah, so let's see, DME errors. Let's double click that. There we go. Now we can read the error memory. Errors. Here we go. Okay, same thing I saw in INPA. Secondary air system, tank venting valve, tank evap system. Common errors with these older cars, not really important. Let's do gearbox control. This is kind of where I'm hoping I'll find some clues. If there's nothing here, that means this is purely a physical issue. Also worth noting, you could see the odometer there. It's in kilometers, but that's 214,000 miles. So that is kind of a fun thing to note. Let's go errors. Output reverse sensor. Okay, but there's nothing, okay, so we're done with the diagnosis here. Ultimately, there's nothing wrong with the software, which means this is purely, a hardware issue, an issue with something physical. Now, I did a little bit of research last night, and it says that the issue could be It could be the transfer case, could be a torque converter. It would have to be something physical with the torque converter, because if the torque converter failed in some other way, it would throw a code. So perhaps it's jammed, as I said, it could be the transfer case chains or gears, those might have snapped or something. It could be the front drive shaft. The splines are known for going bad. So next step now is to, take all the computer stuff out, and then I'm going to jack this thing up on all fours, which will definitely be a little bit precarious given that it's on a slightly slanted road, but I can't exactly put this in my driveway because it doesn't move. So we're just gonna have to make do here, and then once I have it up, I should be able to start poking around under there and see if I can find anything interesting. Alright, so I've got the X5 all jacked up. I used Harbor Freight hydraulic jack, and then I used some hefty 6-ton jack stands because safety first. So now I jacked it up and I found something pretty interesting, so let's hop under there. Now we are looking at the front drive shaft, which I found to be the culprit. Check it out. See, look at this. This is not supposed to be this loose, and I'm seeing evidence of the grease has come out. And check out what happens if I rotate the wheels. There's that horrible metallic sound. Notice how that's rotating, but the transfer case is not rotating at all. It's because the splines there have either come out or stripped out completely. Drive shaft feels very loose. So, yeah, looks like that's the problem here. And if that's the only problem, then I've kind of lucked out. So what I'm going to try to do, since I have to remove this drive shaft anyways, I'm going to remove the front drive shaft, and then I'm going to see if I could just run the X5 as a rear wheel drive, because I don't really need all wheel drive. To do that, we're going to have to remove this big ol' metal reinforcement plate. That's easy. That's 16mm bolts. Pretty easy. Undo those, and that should give me pretty easy access to the flex disc. And then once I remove the bolts there, I should be able to slip the drive shaft right out. So let's do that. Alright, so as you can see there, that's the flex disc. It's a rubber disc that couples the front drive shaft to the front differential over here. It's also known as a guibo by some in the BMW community. So now we're going to remove that. It's a bunch of 16mm bolts and stuff. And I figured I'd put the camera here and do a bit of a time lapse so you guys can enjoy my suffering vicariously. Okay, so slight change of strategy here. In order to keep the front differential from spinning, I had to put the front wheels down onto ramps instead of jack stands. This decreases my clearance a little bit, and I had to reposition the camera. But this, in theory, should work, since the drive shaft's not going anywhere. There we go. Alright, so I've removed the flex disc and this little metal thing here. This came out. I had to push the drive shaft back into its splines back there. That's out. I can take this whole drive shaft out. So let's see if it comes out. Should be able to just pull it out of its splines back here. Oh, it's rotating fine now. That's funny. I guess pushing it back in kind of fixed its spline issue. Oh, there we go. And we're out. We're free. Home free. There you go. As you can see here, the splines on this drive shaft are pretty stripped out, which is a pretty common X5 issue from what I've read. So there's companies that make longer spline drive shafts, so I might look into that. But right now I'm going to put the X5 down and I'm going to see if it runs as rear wheel drive. So that'll be interesting. Alright, so the X5 is now down on the ground and I'm going to see if it'll start and run properly. So this is pretty exciting. Back in here, handbrake off. Alright, moment of truth. Let's see what happens. Alright, engine runs fine, but it did before anyways. Okay, let's see what's happening. Ready? Let's put it into drive. Weird. So I guess I'm not moving, which is unfortunate, but it's time to take a look and see what's happening. Alright, so I tried to run the X5 without the front drive shaft, thinking that I could run it as rear wheel drive only, which would have been cool. Imagine all the burnouts I could do with those giant rear tires. But I guess the differential isn't really designed to run in rear wheel drive, so it just kept spinning. But no more grinding noises though, so that drive shaft was definitely the cause of that. Everything else seems to be fine. The transmission seems to be shifting okay. So I'm gonna order a new front drive shaft, maybe one of the ones with the longer splines. There's companies that make those, and yeah, hopefully that'll fix the issue. I also, just to test one final thing out, I lifted up the rear end, put ramps in the front, lifted the rear end at the differential as per factory instructions, and I spun the rear wheels, and I also spun the drive shaft, the rear drive shaft, the big two-piece one in the rear, and that turned fine. The transfer case didn't make any grinding sounds. There's no grinding sounds at all. So the splines in the transfer case, they look okay for the most part. So I'm thinking I might just be able to get away with a new drive shaft in the front. And that should, in theory, fix all my issues. So if that's the case, then I've just dodged a bullet there. Because a new front drive shaft isn't that expensive, and it's not that hard to replace. You know, I got this one out in about an hour. It wasn't bad at all. And the flex disc, the Guibo, is still in good shape, so I might just be able to reuse that, or I'll just get a new one. But yeah, so that's that. And I guess that marks the end of this episode. So, you know, like the video if you thought this was interesting, and I'll see you next time.